I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest.
Well, enough is enough, and it's time for a change.
Finally, The Rock has come back. I hate this idea that you're the best.
And if you're not down with that, we got two Busch for ya!
I'm the best in the world.
I fight at WrestleMania for the very, very small percentage of people that walk this planet and say I am proud to be, I'm sorry, a professional wrestler.
Oops, I'm breaking the fourth wall.
It's Podcast of the Immortals with your hosts, Matt Busch and Jimmy Bellamy.
Hello and welcome to the show, post-WrestleMania. I'm Jimmy Bellamy. With me is my guest co-host, Joe Hansen. Welcome, Joe.
Oh, good afternoon, sports fans.
Good to have you aboard. Matt, of course, is en route from New Jersey back home to Duluth. He was lucky enough to attend WrestleMania and Monday Night Raw. We will get his thoughts in a little bit, hear from him live. And Joe, I mean, this was... it's becoming an annual thing now, this WrestleMania letdown, maybe, in turning into this unbelievable Raw.
Yeah, the past 2 years at least, we've had just a decent at best WrestleMania output, and then, the start of the new WWE year has been something to get excited about. It's going to be a matter moving forward of what their plan is exactly, if they're actually going to give us something to keep being excited about, but we'll see.
I know, I think it's going to be hard for them to top this week. I remember I was talking to Matt last night, and he had said that it was the best Raw ever, crazy crowd, and I had said that it transferred over well to TV, certainly. I had a soft spot in my heart for last year's Miami show. I thought they were unbelievable with the yes chant. This year was great. I'm looking forward to watching it again, maybe even tonight. But I'm hoping that some of that momentum does carry over.
Yeah. I mean, that crowd was just unbelievable, and it kind of shows when you have a crowd of 12,000 or whatever it was there last night, that it was all the biggest and most devoted fans that stayed there after WrestleMania. So if WWE can get crowds like that more often, then you're going to get a better show, just because if they're into it, it makes better TV.
That's exactly the point, and Matt pointed that out, actually. I think when we started this podcast, he had said that because it's part of that WrestleMania package where you get to go to Raw the next night if you choose to, you have the people who know what's going on, who are devoted to it. I mean, if you're going to shell out the money that these people pay to attend the event, clearly they're really invested, literally and figuratively, into the product. We'll go over WrestleMania first, and I want to get your thoughts on what you thought of the pay-per-view overall. And you can follow us on Twitter at ImmortalsPcast to let us know what you thought of the event. Show started off pre-show. We had an intercontinental title match between Miz and Wade Barrett. Miz went over there, winning the title. What did you think about the pre-show and that match being moved to the pre-show?
Well, the pre-show, I think I started tuning in probably about quarter after 5 local or whatever time it started, and I thought I was really impressed with the pre-show. The setup they had, it kind of felt like the Monday Night Countdown on ESPN. They had the group of analysts there. It was JR, Kofi Kingston, and Dusty Rhodes, and it was kind of a nice little thing they had there. It kind of felt like it was building up to this big event. I had commented on Twitter, if they made the first half hour of Raw this sort of pre-show thing and got all their video packages and stuff out of the way there, that would actually make for a way more entertaining show every week.
I think that giving it that sports feel helped. I tuned into the post-game, or the post-match, post-WrestleMania show, and it was very well done. They had backstage interviews with the winners, with the losers, and they had analysis, and I'd like to see something like that on a regular basis on Monday nights, but I know that it would probably add so much of a workload to the staff and to the talent already that I don't know if they could pull it off, because usually they have to pack right up and go to the next city. I don't know if they could afford that extra hour of time, which would be an extra hour on air, but I'm guessing it would be many more hours of preparation behind the scenes. Although, then again, for the performers, they do a lot of sitting around, admittedly, they say that. Mm-hmm. So maybe it would be worthwhile giving it a shot. But you're right, the video packages seem endless. And that was one of my beefs with the Mania pay-per-view. We'll get into that. But I thought that pre-show analysis and speculation was much better than the traditional Scott Stanford standing there saying, buy the pay-per-view, it starts in 15 minutes. It was well done. It was good.
Yeah, and then as far as the Miz and Barrett match, I think somebody timed it online. I think I said it was 4 minutes long. They did okay for what little time they were given. It wasn't anything great, but it got a decent reaction from the crowd, and I think it got them pumped up for which started out as a real exciting show for them anyways. I'm
wondering if any people out there decided to buy the pay-per-view based on that match. I mean, it seems far-fetched, but one of the popular views is that they have the babyface go over so everybody has a good feeling and wants to get that pay-per-view then. So in that way, it may have been predictable. And it turns out, we'll find out later on, at least we found out Monday, that was the case, because there was a reversal of fortune for Mr. Mizanin on Monday night. We got into the show right away. We start off with the 6-man tag between the Shield and Sheamus, Orton, and Big Show. Shield goes over. There was dissension with the other tag team. I almost said mixed tag team, but I meant non-regular tag team. Shield wins. I think that was the way to go, and it helped set up now what looks to be a feud between Orton and Sheamus.
Yeah, that match was actually a great kicking off point for WrestleMania. I thought that the Shield always brings a certain energy to their matches, and it's always a good thing, I think, to have the actual, the cohesive unit that's actually going to continue to be a team, be the ones to come out on top. It makes more sense for story-wise. That was something that they didn't do on Raw when they had a 6-man tag, but. Yeah, it was a good high-energy match. It kind of kept this storyline with Big Show, Sheamus, and Orton moving forward while also making the Shield look strong. I think it did exactly what it needed to do to open up the show.
I was happy to see that they started with that as opposed to the World Heavyweight Championship match, as we've almost grown accustomed to seeing in recent years. I thought that by having the Shield look good, and that's the thing is... a lot of people say, and it's true, that when these guys perform, often the guys who look good because of their opponent and what their opponent is doing to help them look good. And I mean, that might be the case. The 3 guys that they were fighting on the other side have a lot of experience, but I mean, Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, and even Roman Reigns, they genuinely looked not out of place at all. They looked like they were rising to the occasion. I mean, we had, I think they said an announced attendance of 80,000 plus. And nobody looked jittery in that match at all, and it was a good start. I was happy to see, and I haven't even seen speculation of this, I just thought that usually when you have these groups, inevitably they start adding new members, and I thought there was a possibility that we might see some new members or some kind of allegiance form with the Shield and someone else at Mania, and I was actually happy to not see that.
Yeah, there was always speculation about that. I had heard that too, and I think that the Shield, as it stands right now, makes a lot of sense. Just keep it as the 3 of them. They're kind of somehow been able to escape the normal stable thing where one person emerges as the leader and then the others become an afterthought. So I think so far so good with the Shield.
Who do you see as the leader of that group? I mean, initially because he came in as the NXT champion, I thought Seth Rollins, but Dean Ambrose to me has stood out as the mouthpiece because he is such a good character and he is so good on the mic. He kind of seems like he's at least their spokesperson, but do you see anybody emerging as the guy from that group?
Dean Ambrose is kind of the internet darling too that you always hear about. I actually knew and liked Rollins more in his pre-WB days than I had ever heard about Ambrose. But yeah, I think everyone supports all three of them from the sounds of things. So I don't know. I think if anyone, Dean Ambrose could be the one to step up a little bit more because he does have the mic skills, as they say. So we'll see.
Next, we had Mark Henry versus Ryback, a match that didn't have anything on the line other than the fact that these are two big, strong guys. They were really pushing that going into it. They had the weightlifting competition. And of course, we all know that Mark Henry has been the world's strongest man since he entered in, I think, 1996. Mm-hmm. This match, we saw a result that I think went the opposite way that people saw. I know going into WrestleMania, I thought that Ryback would win this match because he had too many big losses going in, and I thought to establish this guy as a contender for the WWE Championship, he needed to get a victory. Mark Henry, to me, wouldn't have been affected either way with a loss, but they ended up giving the victory to Henry. Others say that happened because it was the one thing that they could change from the from predictable on that card. It was an okay match. Nothing really stood out to me there. Kind of a weird finish, having Henry fall on top of Ryback to get the pin. It just seemed like a weird spot to get the pin.
Yeah, it was kind of an odd finish, but it was one that still kind of made sense. From a wrestling standpoint, it wasn't flashy or anything, but if you're talking about a big battle between two just brute forces, for them to just kind of, come down on each other in a big fall like that, it kind of made sense. My roommate actually asked me yesterday if I knew who Ryback's last pay-per-view victory was against. It was 6 pay-per-views ago. He's lost 6 straight pay-per-views. The last person he beat is actually 2 people. He beat Kurt Hawkins and Tyler X. That's the last time he won on pay-per-view.
That's right. And I guess I forgot that he's been on 6 pay-per-views since he lost to Punk in, help me out here, was it Hell in a Cell?
Hell in a Cell. Also lost at Survivor Series. Lost the TLC match with Team Hell No against The Shield. Lost in the Royal Rumble match.
That's correct.
And then lost in the Elimination Chamber.
That's right. We'll get into Raw. We'll talk more about Ryback and Mark Henry. They had big roles on that Monday night show, as did quite a few of the wrestlers, including this guy, Dolph Ziggler and Big E Langston fought Team Hell No for the tag team titles at WrestleMania and lost. This was one where I thought it was a given that Big E and Ziggy would win, just because I saw Ziggler being this guy to collect the gold, and your girl Caitlyn, I thought, eventually will lose the title to AJ, the Divas title, and I thought that they would get all the gold in this stable. But no, Team Hell No retains. What did you think of that match?
Another good match. I mean, I think that was another one that was real quick. It was only
6
just
minutes,
a few minutes,
yeah.
But it got. I think they told a good story out there. It was, I think Daniel Bryan. I had kind of written about this online, but Daniel Bryan finally got his redemption moment from last year's debacle, where he lost in 8 seconds. They started out with the allusion to that with Ziggler kissing AJ, and then Bryan kicking him to go for the 2 count at least, but he finally ended up getting his WrestleMania moment, getting the pinfall there. So I think that told the best story possible, and as we learned on Raw, I think it was setting up for something more for Ziggler.
That match, the way it started, was a nice touch. I wonder how many people in the arena and watching at home thought that Ziggler would get pinned right away to start that, and it was a really nicely done. I mean, for WWE, they often do recycled bits, but I thought this one was perfect since it involved 2 of the players from last year, and now being on opposite sides, it was a cool little touch to the pay-per-view to otherwise what was kind of an uneventful pay-per-view. I mean, we had Diddy perform. You and I think, mentioned. Or was it? It might have been somebody else, but I know I commented right away about Diddy. I mean, They ran that song into the ground, I think, during a tribute to the troops a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
To bring it out now, I mean, Jay-Z must have been busy and not able to do New York State of Mind.
Yeah. No, it was. It saw plenty of jokes of what next year's song might be from the late '90s or anything. That is what it is as far as P. Diddy. I mean,
please, it's Diddy now. He grabbed P.
Excuse me, Diddy, dirty money. But
although I'm sure that WWE still calls him P. Diddy because they are a few years behind.
Yeah,
the music acts.
Yeah, just like me apparently. But yeah, as far as Diddy goes, I mean, there's been musical acts on WrestleMania for as long as I can remember. It was fine for what it was, and it actually didn't have the sort of negative drawback I thought that the Machine Gun Kelly and Flo Rida little rap battle from last year seemed to have.
That's true. And we did get the live performance from not from In Living Color, that's the show, but from Living Color, or later on when Punk entered. We had Fandango versus Jericho, and Fandango finally makes his in-ring TV debut. And we had a match that was dominated by Jericho. Fandango gets the win. I don't know if I want to label it sloppy, but it was a match that seemed like it had a little bit of a disconnect.
Yeah, definitely the finish, at least. Jericho going for the Lion Salt. Fandango seemed a little out of place. He was supposed to be getting his knees up, I think. It just looked a little confusing, and then he ended up with the kind of roll up there at the end. As someone who paid attention to NXT when it was the online show and had actually watched Johnny Curtis in his former life wrestle a little bit, I kind of knew he could go in the ring a little bit. So it was not a super memorable debut for him, but I think it got the point across that he was here to stay as this character anyways.
And I thought it was nice to, I mean, as they say, Jericho to give him a rub on that stage. I can't think of, and I'm sure somebody could correct us, well, I mean, Big E Langston, that was his in-ring TV debut at WrestleMania. I thought that for that spot, some people might say, well, it's, a wrestling show is a wrestling show. To a wrestler, maybe they think that, but now WrestleMania has become such a spectacle that they have to have an extra set of butterflies going into it, with that many people watching in person and then knowing how many people are watching at home. I thought that maybe nerves played a factor there at the end of the match or near it, but his spots off the top rope looked good. He had two really nice leg drops, and I think the best way to close it would have been with that second leg drop where he got the near fall. I thought that would have been a nice solid 3 count there. Would have told a good story. After that, we had the World Heavyweight Championship match. Alberto Del Rio defending against Jack Swagger. And this one went, in a way, the way everybody thought, with Del Rio winning. But we did not get the Money in the Bank cashed in from Dolph Ziggler, which I speculated, and I think a few other people thought too. Probably because traditionally they had the Money in the Bank title match at WrestleMania, so the contract expired the next year at WrestleMania. But of course this one was from the Money in the Bank pay-per-view later on in 2012, so Ziggler still had the opportunity to cash in beyond WrestleMania.
Yeah, I mean, this was the one match that I think the WWE did a real great job giving us a story and a reason to care about this match. Obviously, with the Del Rio conquering racism, basically, is what I've been calling it all along. But yeah, a lot of mixed emotions on that from people, but I thought it told a good story from that perspective. That's kind of how I go into wrestling, is just thinking, is it telling a good story? I mean, I appreciate the in-ring action too, but I like to have a coherent story, and that's usually one of my big gripes, is when it's not that. But yeah, it told a good story, and I think it told that story in the ring too. Swagger kind of dominated early, and Del Rio came back and was able to get the win. From
the way I see it, the 3 matches that, of course, WWE saw as the ones to push to sell this pay-per-view were the WWE Championship match with Rock and Cena, the Brock Lesnar Triple H match, and the Undertaker Punk match. I saw this match, the Swagger Del Rio encounter, as one that they could have sold with the storyline. They had I mean, at first when Zeb Coulter came in and you saw that transformation from Jack Swagger, it had the potential to make that mainstream attention as far as from a media standpoint. And it seems like WWE was there, but then they backed off once the Glenn Beck kerfuffle started, and they never really put their feet back on the pedal after that, and it just kind of was there. And of course, I mean, the marijuana arrest by Swagger probably didn't help matters.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons for sure why things slowed down and quieted down on that front. I think they didn't really want to bring any more undue attention to that. Whether or not he ends up with a suspension here upcoming, he did lose to Del Rio twice this week cleanly now after Raw, so he might be taking a back seat for a little bit. But from the sounds of things online, I don't know if you follow the Zeb Coulter Twitter, he said he's going to be starting up a blog now to spread his message. So we'll see. The character should be sticking around for a while anyways.
Yeah, he really, whether it was for better or worse, he stood out more than Swagger. I mean, you have Paul Heyman, who can elevate wrestlers. I don't really see Coulter as one who has elevated Swagger. He's almost overshadowed him to no fault of his. I think, if anything, that's at the detriment or to the detriment of Swagger and his lack of charisma or lack of believability as a monster or as a tough wrestler.
Yeah.
Now with Del Rio no longer champion, as Dolph Ziggler won it on Monday night, I don't know if this feud will go away entirely or what we'll see. It's one I'm interested in because of Coulter, so we'll see what happens there. Next match, we had CM Punk versus The Undertaker. Undertaker 20-0 at WrestleMania going into it. CM Punk wanting to be the one to get that victory, get the respect. This storyline going into it, the build-up, it was all about the death of Paul Bearer, the real-life death. And I wonder what they would have done if Paul Bearer was alive. In fact, part of me was hoping that he would come out in the middle of that match, and that it was the greatest work in history.
Yeah. No, that's a question I asked myself several times as well. What exactly was their plan before Paul Bearer died? They had the strangest, what I call the strangest contender match of all time, when they had the 4-way match for who would get to face The Undertaker, which to me just made no sense whatsoever. That why would someone say, I want to fight someone for the right to face someone else with no championship on the line? This would have made a lot more sense to just have CM Punk come out and say, I might have lost my title, but I can still make an impact at WrestleMania. I want Undertaker. It seemed like they were maybe just pressed for a main event that week, and that was why that match happened. But
that very well could have been.
Yeah, but whether or not the using the Paul Bearer for the benefit of the storyline was the right way to go about it, it made for an interesting story.
I didn't take any offense to it'd be hard for wrestling to offend me, period, but I didn't have any problem with the exploitation of his death. And if I were a betting man, I'd probably say Paul Bearer was probably cool with it. Going into it, I mean, he was in poor health for a while, and he loved wrestling. He loved being a part of it. He was a part of some completely asinine storylines over the years. Everything. I mean, he had died on TV a few times.
Yes. Yeah.
So I have a feeling that WWE had his blessing, or at least had his family's blessing. And big shocker, Undertaker wins. Every year they try to have you suspend your disbelief and make you think that his opponent actually has a chance of winning. I think I gave up after the second Shawn Michaels attempt. I didn't believe for a second that Triple H would beat him in any of those matches. And I didn't believe that Punk would win, but I wanted Punk to win. I thought if this would be Undertaker's last match, it would make sense for him to show that, just to give that endorsement, to say, this is the guy who beat me at WrestleMania. He's that good. Here you go. And then that would be what would elevate Punk to even greater heights than he is, which is funny to say that he had that 434-day title reign, but that he would need to be put up even larger. And I mean, clearly Cena's the guy, and that's what WWE wants you to know, is that Cena's their guy. He's the one. Everybody else is below him. But I thought if anything could get somebody above him, it would be a victory over The Undertaker by Punk.
Yeah, I mean, there was... The other thing was there was really no point during the match even where you thought, oh, this is where Punk is going to win. Which, I mean, maybe that was just kind of curtailing to our knowledge that Undertaker was obviously going to win. But even at the point where he knocked him over the head with the urn, or when he went for the elbow off the top rope onto the table, not through.
Yeah. Oh,
the Spanish announce table decided
I can hear that
wasn't going to break. Yeah, that was that looked painful for both ends. I think I tweeted, I think CM Punk is wishing he could take painkillers and not break Edge after that one.
Yeah, that's true. So does Undertaker fight Cena next year at WrestleMania?
I don't know what to think. Part of me says, they said on Raw that The Rock has got another championship match in his contract. I sure hope they don't have him say, oh, well, I'm going to use it at WrestleMania and fight Cena again. I could see it. I would much prefer Cena versus The Undertaker next year, if Undertaker's going to do it, but we'll see what happens. I think that's the one opponent where you can say Undertaker might lose.
Right now at this point, that's the only guy. I think about anybody else you would put in front of him would either be recycled or not believable. You can't have him fight Dolph Ziggler, and I don't care what they do in this next year. You can't make me believe that Dolph Ziggler can beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Cena's, I think, your only shot. After that, we had the grudge match, the no-holds-barred, no-DQ match, which, by the way, have they ever had a no-holds-barred non-DQ match? I mean, really, come on, that's kind of a double negative. Brock Lesnar versus Triple H. Or would it be an oxymoron? Yeah, oxymoron. And a double negative. Brock Lesnar versus Triple H. Triple H's career on the line. His wrestling career on the line, which I didn't know he still had one. But okay then. Triple H wins. This one was a fight. A lot of it took place outside of the ring. We had a couple spots with the ring steps inside the ring, and a lot of Kimura locks. A lot of Kimura locks going both ways. I think a highlight that people might remember is the primal yell from Brock Lesnar after he threw Triple H off of him outside the ring, and then all the Kimura locks, and then the Kimura lock into the spine buster onto the steps. But yeah, I think it was just a battle. I mean, there was nothing pretty about it, but again, it told a decent story in the ring. I think this was where we kind of started to feel like the crowd had lost a little interest. I think after CM Punk and Undertaker put on what I thought was match of the night, I think a lot of people agree. I think the crowd was not as into it, especially because it seemed, for all intents and purposes, it was going to be Triple H getting the victory there. It did have that feel. I know I was watching with 4 other friends, and the Punk-Undertaker match had our attention more. We had a couple guys there who don't necessarily care for wrestling, but one of them lives at the house we watched it at, and the other guy was just a mutual friend who came to hang out. And they were really into that match, for as into it as they could be. And with the Triple H Lesnar match, I was kind of just waiting for the main event at that point, and coming down from that Undertaker match. Triple H wins. I didn't see them having Lesnar go over there and then having to wiggle their way out of how can you get Triple H to fight again and make it make sense without having him look like he's going back on his word. Right now, calling in live is Matt Busch, fresh off of Monday Night Raw. Matt, welcome to the show. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I woke up today and I couldn't talk. That's a good feeling.
That's very good. We're doing our wrap up right now. We are just getting to the Rock Cena main event from WrestleMania, so we'll talk to you about that briefly, and then we'll get into Raw, of course, which seemed to be a hell of a show.
Oh man, so ask away.
So okay, well, Rock Cena, Joe Hansen is with us, and we were just talking about how the Lesnar Triple H match seemed like the crowd was kind of lulled to sleep after that tremendous Punk Taker match.
It was kind of dead for Trips and Lesnar. It got a bit better at near the end there when Lesnar was trying to fight out of those what is it called?
The Kimura lock?
Yeah, the Kimura lock. Gosh, sorry, I'm outside. I'm getting eaten by bugs right now.
Well, it's like 34 here.
So they were pretty hot for that. But then it was weird. They skipped the 4-on-4 match. So they jumped right into Cena Rock, and everyone was surprised. I had no idea that was even coming up. It seemed so sudden. And it was, I don't know, I thought the crowd was actually pretty good for that. Being in the crowd, especially that last Rock Bottom, the crowd was dumping for that. They thought Rock was actually going to pull it out. So it was pretty crazy.
It was funny that you mentioned the 8-man match, or the 8-person match, I should say. When Cena's music hit, I remember looking up and thinking, huh? Because that was what I was expecting. And then, of course, whether people were kidding or not, and I think there was a mix, I looked at Twitter and people were like, oh, Tons of Funk must be main eventing. And I mean, I think some people, some very, very stupid people genuinely thought that on Twitter. And then other people you could tell were joking. So, I mean...
Well, it was sad, though. I saw, where we were sitting, we could see... the backstage, pretty much. We could see into that, and we saw the Bellas walk by in full gear 5 minutes before they were supposed to go on, so that you know that they were just told, right before they were going out, that guess what, you're not going to be on Mania. So that kind of felt really bad. I feel bad for them. They're thinking they're going out in front of 80,000 people, and instead, nothing.
But it turns out it wasn't so bad. They got there the next night in front of a raucous crowd. Joe, do you have any questions for Mr. Matt Busch?
No, I was just going to say, I had commented on Raw before that match happened. I said if this match is 5 minutes, they should have just put it on. And then it was just that. It was about 5-minute match on Raw, and I don't know. So on TV. The WrestleMania the main event audience, this audience didn't seem to care, but you're telling us that in person it was a little better?
Being there, I thought it was the second most exciting match of the night. Crowd-wise even, they were pretty hot for it, especially near the end there when it finally got going. But I thought this match was way better than Rock Cena 1.
This match for me wasn't as good as the first one because I didn't know necessarily that Rock would win the first match because we were sold once in a lifetime, and that was it. And we thought, why would they have a part-timer come in and bury the regular guy, the big guy, the current guy, and of course knowing in hindsight that they had a second match. What ruined it for me was that it seemed like it was a foregone conclusion that Cena was going to walk away with the title. But other than that, give us your overall Mania experience, whether it was the days leading up to it, the event itself, just give us the rundown.
Well, it was really great. Our wrestling, weekend started on Saturday. We went to WrestleCon, and I got to see Hulk Hogan. I got to see Colt Cabana. I took a photo with him. Kelly was there. My girlfriend got a photo with John Morrison. RVD was there. Bret Hart. Ultimate Warrior. You Blue Meanie. You could just walk down a row and see Jake the Snake Roberts. That was really cool. Just walking by him and I Colt Cabana was just standing there. I'm like, hey man, you're Colt Cabana, right? He's like, yeah. I'm like, how's it going? We just talked for 5 minutes. Took a photo. He's super cool. It was just a really cool thing. There's 10 people in there for every wrestler. So. it was just really neat. So Sunday, we went to Access in the morning, and that was really cool, too. There's a lot of people you can meet. I got both Ellis's autograph, which, whatever. But, yeah, they had 5 matches. They had Cassius Ohno fighting a match, an NXT match. So that was really sweet. There's stuff you could do. We didn't really do that. We just kind of took it in. And then, of course, Mania on Sunday night, was insane. Like, I got a little drunk in the parking lot beforehand. There was these guys from Jersey having a big party right by where I parked, so they were having me pound some beers and stuff. So that was a little juice going in.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Overall, would you do it again?
Absolutely. I want to go next year. You guys in?
I will definitely consider it. I'd love to. I'd love to go. I've never been to New Orleans. I'm just hoping that we don't get Rock Cena 3.
Yeah, we just mentioned that. Yeah, I definitely would love to go to WrestleMania sometime in my life, and I'd rather not. Maybe when this Viking Stadium is finished, we might get one up here, but maybe I won't hold my breath for that.
Yeah, and that's the biggest reason why I wanted a roof or a retractable roof, was so we could house a WrestleMania. That'd be a lot of fun.
Backstage will pay for it. We'll get a Mania. That's fine.
So what memory or two will stand out from the actual WrestleMania event for you to say that, oh, hey, I was there? What was the thing that stood out?
Like the actual WrestleMania, not just the whole week?
Not the whole week. The WrestleMania show.
Sure. The Undertaker and CM Punk match was by far the most jazz there was. Especially, that ending was insane. I thought that was really, really good. Also, where my seats were, Snooki walked 3 feet by us. Bob Backlund came out. He gave me a high five. And then, and I have a photo of that, too. I got a buddy, well, I guess he's a buddy now. He took a photo of it, and I didn't realize. He goes, dude, I got that. I'll send it to you. And I just got it right before I called you guys.
That's pretty sweet.
Also, Matt Stryker was out there, and he struck up a conversation with me about my Twins hat, because he just plays fantasy baseball. And he was like, name 5 guys on the Twins. I'm like, do you want me to name the whole team? How long you got here? So that was really fun. I took a photo with him as well. But yeah, that Punk match was something special. But it's not the best moment of the week, and that would be Monday Night Raw.
Yes, let's get into that. It was nuts. We alluded to that, and of course, a lot of the people listening watched Raw, and it was nuts. Tell us about it. Tell us about what it was like to be there.
It was one of the greatest experiences of my life. WrestleMania was great, but Raw was 10 times better. Hands down. You had the cash in with Dolph Ziggler, where I thought the roof was gonna fall. The room was shaking. It was so loud. We had chants back and forth. I was trying to get a bent watch going, but I didn't want to get kicked out. But from the moment we got there till the moment we left, and even beyond that, people were chanting and singing and dancing. I took a bunch of video. In the parking lot, people were honking their horns. The Fandango theme. They were dancing around in circles. They were. I saw footage from the train back to New York. People were doing the Fandango then.
It's unbelievable.
I think it's gonna become a thing.
When we were,
it's really cool.
when I was at work today, I hope no one from work is listening. I looked at a few videos on YouTube from cell phones, from in the arena, from in the concourse, from outside, and you've got everybody doing the little fingers pointing in the air while they're singing along, and it was unbelievable, just the reaction. And I remember telling you last night that at one point when Mark Henry's song came on, I thought the volume on my TV was broken because I heard this echoing, and everybody was singing his song. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was insane. And we were so jazzed, every single time someone came out, we were excited to see who it was next just so we could start chanting something else, And it was during a commercial break, the lights came back up, and then we hear the glass shatter for Stone Cold. And the entire, sorry, there's a train going by. But the entire arena just freaked out. And then we realized that it was a video package that started with Stone Cold's glass shattering.
Oh,
I never went from like an 11-0 that quick before.
That would have been the only thing I think that would have topped the Ziggler reaction was if Stone Cold came out.
Oh my God! If you really wanted to see the crowd go nuts, I mean, the Ziggler thing was awesome. If CM Punk could come out, that crowd was ready for CM Punk the whole night, and he didn't come out. I guess he's selling the injury. Like, well, he actually did get hurt on Sunday when he jumped onto the announce table
With that terrible thud.
Yeah. Oh, even from where I was sitting, like 100 yards away, it was like, ooh. But yeah, that would have been insane if Punk or even if Rock was there. I can't believe he didn't show up, but.
Well, he sounded, and I don't know if they said it, but if they announced it to the crowd there, but apparently he tore his abdomen and something else that starts with an A.
Yeah, something
off of his rib cage, and that he was legitimately hurt. I mean, I thought no Brock, no Rock, no Punk, no problem. But I mean, it had to be a little disappointing for Punk not to be there at least. But in this whole build-up, we didn't need Lesnar, we didn't need Triple H. At this point, we really didn't need Rock. So, I mean, for the crowd to be the way it was last night, I mean, it says something else.
Yeah, I mean, they were just jazzed and ready to go. I saw flags for, like, football clubs in Europe, and I saw Chelsea. I saw, like, flags from all over the country. I was sitting next to some Brits, an Irish person in front of me. Like, it was an international crowd, and they were just all, like, smarks, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, it was insane. Like, there was one section down by the ring that would kind of start the chants, but then everyone would just pick it up immediately.
And that
was no dissension, no one sitting down.
That was one thing I noticed too, that as soon as something was said in the ring, it was an audible chant almost instantly.
Oh, yeah. And I loved, like, I've been watching some video clips today just because I'm still so jazzed about it. They actually made special... They made a highlight reel of the crowd last night for WWE that just went up on WWE.com. They also had a Raw recap kind of thing on WWE.com, and there was an editor's note saying it was the greatest crowd of all time.
That's very cool.
So, yeah, over 1,000 episodes. I've been to 2. And one of them was the greatest ever, so I feel pretty good about that.
And you should. There are a lot of people to this day who say they were in person to witness the Miracle on Ice when there's no way they were because they're not old enough. But you can honestly say years from now that you were at that post-WrestleMania 29 Raw.
Yeah. And, man, like Miami was great last year, and that was one of the things that made me want to go to WrestleMania, was that crowd after WrestleMania 28. And, like, we almost didn't get to Raw, by the way. It was just crazy to do. My car broke down. The power steering went. So I couldn't drive, so we were going to take a train. We get to the train station, and there's a fire on the tracks halfway, like 3 stops down the road, so no trains come.
Someone didn't want you to go to that show.
I know. Well, screw them, because I got there. It was awesome.
And to me, you know, what has to help take away that Christmas night feeling of emptiness when you leave WrestleMania is knowing that you have Raw to look forward to the next day. And certainly, it delivered this year again.
You guys have to go next year. It was awesome, and I think this is going to be like a tradition. Like the Raw after Mania might even be just as big as Mania. Those tickets are going to be hot.
Well, believe it or not, I think that WWE will find a way to ruin it somehow.
Yeah, no doubt. They want us to cheer for certain people, but we did not last night.
And I'm willing to bet that next Monday, Fandango will be wearing the da-da-da shirt.
They'll probably change his theme song.
Yeah.
Just be jerks about it.
Do you have anything else you want to add about the week, about the shows, before we let you go?
Well, I was curious how the event, like, playing on TV, because I haven't been able to see WrestleMania yet. Like, I know I've read a lot of stuff. A lot of people are down on it, but it was tough because it was cold. It started to rain early on. It's an open-ended stadium. I mean, the crowd was pretty amped for it, but I think it was tough to convey that over the TV.
I think and Joe, you can give your feedback on this too. I don't think it will be an all-time worst, but it certainly won't be an all-time great. And I think it lacked some backstage segments. I think it lacked some swerves, run-ins, heel turns, and they didn't sing "America the Beautiful." Not that I cared.
And that was really weird too.
But it seemed like a rush job on TV. That's the way a lot of video packages too throughout the whole night.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was all punk and rock, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Not punk. I meant Cena Rock.
I knew what you meant, but no, both of those segments. It was Cena Rock and it was Punk Undertaker. They touched on them a few times, but Joe, what did you think from watching that?
Yeah, and I think something, as he said, that something felt off about the timing of the whole show. It just parts seemed rushed, parts seemed long. It just there was something off the whole night, and it wasn't a horrid WrestleMania. I didn't regret spending my $60 on it, but it's not one that I'm going to be saying, man, I need to get the DVD of that so I can relive it either.
Yeah. Well, like, watching the matches, I don't think there was a bad match on the card. I thought they were all very well wrestled, but it never got to that level, like, holy shit,
Yeah.
There's never that moment that really got the crowd amped.
Yeah, I think the only one that you'll stand out and look at is you'll say maybe the Punk table spot as one, and I won't even call that a botch. I'll just call that a really fucking strong table. Other than that, I don't think we'll be talking about a highlight years from now. And of course, I'm sure they'll show Cena Rock, but there was never a moment in that match that I'll say, oh, that's right up there with the Brock moonsault or, the Shawn Michaels ladder jump or anything like that.
Yeah.
Or the what's the word? The spring line? No.
Yeah, the zip line.
The zip line, thank you, the spring line. I'm an idiot. But, I mean, Raw, on the contrary, was unbelievable, and I expected it because of last year, and I remember sitting down right before 7, I'm like, all right, I'm ready, let's go, and holy crap, was that an awesome ride.
Well, I mean, if you watch the matches, like, they weren't that great, but it was the crowd that really, and Michael Cole chants,
and that's exactly the point.
RVD.
That's exactly the point. I told you earlier today last night that the announcers brought up the crowd constantly, and you could tell with the way they giggled how excited they were because it was something that they hadn't really experienced ever or in a while. And you could see, based on some of the wrestlers' facial expressions during matches, that they were also in awe of just how unbelievable the crowd was. I mean, Sheamus and Randy Orton looked like they wanted to hate each other, but they kept having like grins or like smirks, like they were trying to be mad and angry, but they couldn't.
I know, it was just, and then Big Show comes out, he's throwing the chairs and like, one more chair. I don't know. I've never been to something like that, where it's just like a unified crowd. I was at game 163 for the Twins, and that was insane. But this, I don't know. This might top it. It's really, really close.
The best part, I don't know if it was the chant starters or what, but everybody seemed on the same page. Like they knew what they were getting into, and they were going to go with it. And people led and people followed, and it was just... I'm excited to watch it again, just to notice things that I didn't see the first time.
Yeah. Well, how over is Fandango right now?
That's what I hope they carry into. Joe and I said at the start of the show, we want to see some momentum carry over. And one, I would like... I mean, I know people say, well, his song's more over than he is, but I think this is going to do wonders for him, and I hope that he can make the most of it. And based on what I know of Johnny Curtis, Joe was a devout NXT online watcher, and he's seen him work. And I know he got a lot of props for his promos on SmackDown when he was going to debut as Johnny Curtis a couple years back. I think he will make the most of this run. I think he'll be able to do something. Now, I hope WWE embraces it. And I think they will. I mean, they had him win a match at WrestleMania against Chris Jericho. I think they will.
Well, what I'm worried, last year after Miami's Raw, the yes chant was crazy. And WWE actually muted or, toned down the crowd's reactions after that because they were trying to push Daniel Bryan as a heel. Mm-hmm. And hopefully they don't do that this time. Maybe they learned their lesson last year because they eventually stopped. But, it's going to be interesting. I think this is like a launching pad for the next year, and I think it could be really good.
Yeah, we'll see what they do with it. You want to stick with us, or what would you like to do, Maddie?
I should get going. My girlfriend's waiting upstairs, and I need to hang out with her some more. So, I'll let you guys go. I'll listen for the podcast later on tonight. Thank you guys. I can't wait to see you and show you everything. I have video footage from the second it started till the end of the match with the Ziggler cash-in. I knew he was coming out. I had the video recording already, waiting for that entrance. I got the whole thing. I got a lot of cool stuff, so I'll show you guys that real soon.
Good. I'm looking forward to seeing it. You travel safely, and we'll see you next week for episode 10.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Take it easy, man.
Matt Busch joining us from New Jersey, and off a tremendous WrestleMania weekend experience for him. First time. And Joseph, that brings us into Raw. And if you haven't seen Raw, and I can't imagine you haven't if you're listening to this podcast, but see it, and hopefully you DVR'd it or recorded it in some way. I don't know if there's another way to record things other than DVR these days. But while it was tremendous, and Matt said, maybe none of the matches stood out, but it didn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think, truly the memorable thing about Raw was the crowd. I think that's the same thing you say about last year, the Miami Raw. You remember the yes chants throughout the whole night. You're going to remember the cha-cha-la-la from this year's. I'm sure we're going to get the T-shirt again, but if we want to run down Raw quick, I guess. We went through so much already. Started out with John Cena coming out to no surprise of anyone. The crowd was letting him have it right away. They were not letting him talk. I don't know if the WWE expected something else, if he expected something else, but I don't know what you were thinking about that.
It was the same old. I mean, an ounce of me was hoping that he would come out and denounce the crowd and say that I'm not going to say the champ is here. Not only did he say the champ is here, he was wearing a T-shirt that said the champ is here. But I knew that they would give him the business right away, and I thought he handled it well. Throughout the entire night, Cena played to the crowd, recognized what they were doing, and embraced it rather than fought it. And that's how a guy, I think, best handles it, is by embracing it instead of fighting it.
Yeah, I think for Cena to pretend that they weren't booing him and they weren't singing to him would just be, very dishonest. I think it would be the embodiment of what WWE does in trying to convince us that Cena's the good guy when 90% of the crowd, at least last night, was booing him. Yeah. And then Mark Henry enters the fray, says he wants a championship match with Cena. I guess that kind of plays into maybe why he did get the victory against Ryback, was to position him for this match. I didn't really understand where they were going. Booker T came down, said, no, you have to beat Cena in order to fight Cena. I think I commented on Twitter, Booker T isn't even the general manager in charge of the WWE Championship. I don't know, they have a confusing hierarchy of power.
They seem to confuse it. I don't know if they're saying that Mark Henry's a SmackDown superstar. But to me, it's one of those things where I've just given up trying to have it make sense. I don't want to be the one to connect the dots for WWE if they're not going to make it, cohesive with the rest of the stuff they've been doing. And, he came out, like you said, and demanded that title shot. We got the main event later on in the night between Cena and Mark Henry. It took me a while to believe Mark Henry during that World Heavyweight Championship run, because he had been with the company forever and really never got a sniff of anything. And he was always kind of a mid-carder, and he was oft injured. But I do believe him as a WWE title contender. I could see him with the belt. I don't see this as a lasting feud. I don't know if it will end with a Henry victory, but we'll see where that goes. I think we're going to see a lot of people, I guess, holding CM Punk's place until he returns. And whether the title's still on Cena at that point, who knows?
Yeah, I think touching on Mark Henry, I mean, I've really truly enjoyed everything that he's done since he's come back from his telling Great Khali that if he wanted to dance with him, he'd have bought a dress, to his yelling, "That's what I do." But yeah, I mean, he's finally seems to have come into his own in this Hall of Pain thing, and yeah, whether or not he's actually going to be going against Cena moving forward, it's remains to be seen. From there, there's a lot of filler on the Raw card. I think maybe we can just touch on some of that quickly. Big E beat Daniel Bryan in his first singles match. I don't think there was really anything special about that one, other than Big E looked dominant, and it at least distracted us from what was to come for Ziggler later in the night.
It was a good way to get him that win. Of course, they had interference from AJ. Kane got involved, and then Big E picked up the win after he picked up Daniel Bryan and threw him onto Kane. It was a good setup just because I like this group, and I mean, it's funny, there's 3 of them, but sometimes they seem like a much larger faction. I mean, they get a lot of screen time and they make the most of it. I'm when I watch, you think about all the years that the McMahons dominated TV, where Stephanie and Shane and Vince were on a lot, and it'd be like, really? Or Triple H would have 8 segments. They don't seem stale when Ziggler, AJ, and Big E are out there. It doesn't seem like they've been out there as many times as they have. And I'm glad that Big E's now getting into the mix and wrestling, and he doesn't look out of place to me. I mean, I don't know if they wanted to keep the training wheels on him for a while, or if they just wanted the crowd to warm up to him, to recognize him as somebody who matters. But it's worked to this point, and I look forward to seeing him in other matches. And even though Dolph might be preoccupied with other things, I hope they do fight more as a tag team.
Yeah, they just seem to have a good cohesive group there together, and I think that, like you said, that stable, well, prominent every week. I think that I don't feel overburdened by them. After that, we had what we touched on earlier again. Wade Barrett wins back the Intercontinental Championship. That was actually a much better match than the WrestleMania pre-show match.
I agree. I think with the time constraints of the pre-show, where they had to have in the back of their heads, oh my God, we have to end at a certain time because the biggest show of the year is going to start as soon as we're done. This was a better match. I think the crowd helped with that too, and I think it was cool to see Barrett win. I went into it thinking, oh, Miz is going to win this match, or at least retain somehow, because you're not going to have the title change after a day, even though they're no stranger to doing that, even with some of the biggest titles. I thought it was a good match to have at this post WrestleMania show. I'm a big fan of the Intercontinental title myself, especially the current incarnation of it. Even though it doesn't quite mean what it meant 25 years ago, it's good to see it defended on Raw. and yeah, I mean, a better match. I'm not the biggest Miz guy, but he's getting that figure 4 down a little better, a little cleaner.
Yeah. I think people have called it online the figure 11. But yeah, I've always been a fan of Barrett, and I think that him and Miz actually kind of do pretty well together, and it showed last night. And the fans were really into Barrett, and I think that helped with him picking up the win there. As far as the title changing hands one night after the other, who knows why exactly they did that. I kind of like to see the Intercontinental title defended more, because for so long Wade Barrett was losing every week except for the once a month when he would defend the title, and he'd finally win it. So they're actually going to use him in matches where he's doing something new, defending it and actually looking strong. That would probably be the best thing for that title, as I kind of thought for the past few months at least. It's been probably their weakest looking belt.
I think what they need to do is they need to get rid of the U.S. title. They should, bring those belts back together again for, I guess, the second time, and have just unify them, and then have the IC title be the one. I think it would give it more meaning. And I mean, there's no reason a guy like Antonio Cesaro shouldn't be fighting for the IC title anyway. And you wouldn't have this case where you have the U.S. champion without a match on WrestleMania Day, and there's no way they couldn't have made that a triple threat match to unify the belts, whether it was at Mania or last night.
Yeah, I don't know what is going on with the status of Antonio Cesaro. I mean, I've made no secret that I'm a fan of his as well, but we'll see where they're going from him. A lot of times it feels like they can only focus on one of those belts at a time, from a writing or presentation standpoint. So if they merged them together, that would probably be the best, so they just don't even have to worry about it.
And one nice touch, CM Punk's always good at getting that little dig in. At the WrestleMania press conference on Friday, he wore an Antonio Cesaro t-shirt underneath his zip-up hoodie, which I thought was a nice tip of the cap to the man who was matchless on WrestleMania Day. I'm sure it was no coincidence that he was wearing that. What do we have next from Raw?
Right after that was the match that led into the big moment. Zeb Coulter's second match back on Raw here after years away. Zeb and Jack Swagger teaming up in a handicap match against Del Rio. The match itself, I don't know. There was nothing real memorable about that match itself. Del Rio ends up getting the win with the cross arm breaker after Ricardo was able to distract Coulter out of the ring. 2 straight wins for Del Rio over Swagger kind of leads you to believe that their feud is over, particularly with that paired up with the happening right after the match.
We happen by coincidence to have it on the TV in the background right now, and of course I think everybody saw this coming, with not necessarily with the idea that it was a handicap match that Del Rio was in, because Zeb Coulter's not going to play a huge factor. Of course, it's not like you're fighting Big Show and Kane as your 2 opponents, but a lot of damage was done to Del Rio's ankle from Jack Swagger, and everybody was hoping for it, and it happened. Dolph Ziggler came down, the music hit, and as Matt said, the crowd exploded, and that was evident if you saw it on TV or if you watched it on YouTube. And he cashed it in, and he won with his Money in the Bank briefcase, contract opportunity, wins the World Heavyweight Championship. And I thought they did it in a great way by having a couple of near falls. It wasn't a slam dunk that he was going to win it.
Yeah, I commented on that too during the show, of how boy, it would have been interesting if Del Rio would have beaten him there. I think the crowd would have immediately turned on the show. So yeah, they definitely went the right way, at least on that given night. What Ziggler does with the belt from here is anyone's guess. I'm glad he has it. I think he's shown over the years, over the past year at least, that he deserves it. So we'll see what he does with it.
It's funny to think that he technically has been the world champion before, and of course it's rarely recognized, because the night he was given the title, he lost it minutes later to Edge. But to have him hold the title now, I think he has established himself enough where he's a believable champion. Usually when they give that guy the first run with the title, it's kind of the reluctant champion or somebody who, especially a heel, he'll need interference to retain it. Now, of course, he'll have that built-in excuse with AJ and Big E by his side, not one but two people to come to the ring with. But he's, to me, a believable champion based on the victories he's had, based on the hard-fought matches he's had with John Cena. It's funny to think that I think a few weeks ago he was pinned by The Miz cleanly.
Yeah.
But it's going to be an exciting run. I'm curious to see if he remains a heel, like his Twitter handle says, because the crowd is so into him that they may have to turn him into a babyface. Del Rio's a guy where, the crowd, when he came close to winning that match with Ziggler, the crowd was so against him, booing incredibly loud. So I don't know where this will go. I have a hard time believing Del Rio as a heel anyway, kind of like Miz. So I'll be wondering if they retain that or if they switch him back. And I think Ziggler will maintain his heel status because he has two other heels with him. It'd be hard to turn the whole group, and it'd be hard to split them up. It wouldn't really make sense at this point. But to me, that was the most exciting part of the show. And I'm glad they put it in the middle of the show and not at the end, because the crowd seemed to build from that moment and carry that on into some of the other matches that were relatively uneventful.
Yeah, unlike the big moment of WrestleMania of Punk Undertaker, I think that the big moment there actually energized the crowd and kept things going forward. Touching on the Money in the Bank for a second here. For the longest time I always said I don't like the Money in the Bank because until they cashes it in, every single week, every person says, "Oh, now's the time to do it. Now's the time to do it. Now's the time to do it." And there was never a point with Ziggler up until this point where I said, now really is the time to do it. This one was the perfect time. It gave us something new here and something to look forward to because, like I said, this is something we don't know where they're going to go from here with Ziggler. So that's always something I like to have anyways.
And the best thing it did for me was it gives me a reason to watch next week. I want to see where they go with it. I want to see what they do with him. And that right there, they leave you wanting more. That's their goal, and they accomplished it with that piece.
Mm-hmm. From there, The Undertaker comes out, starts his speech. I think a lot of people thought this was going to be when Brock Lesnar made an appearance, maybe hint towards a Brock-Undertaker match upcoming, but it was indeed The Shield that came out. They continued their string of going against the top-tier talent. They come out, surround the ring for The Undertaker, but to no surprise, The Shield's former adversaries from a few months ago, Team Hell No comes out and helps out The Undertaker by scaring them off.
This was a point in the show where I thought it was possible that Daniel Bryan would have aligned himself with Shield. I know that sounds weird and kind of out of left field, but I knew Kane would come down, and I was a little surprised to see Bryan with him. And then I thought I could see Shield continuing to approach the ring, get on the ropes, and then Bryan be that fourth guy to tip the scale in the other way. But Shield retreated, and what made me think that Bryan was going to turn was because the announcers were advertising throughout the night that Shield tweeted that they were going to make history on Raw that night and that it would be bigger than anything they've ever done. It turned out to not be that way at all. So it led me to believe something that wasn't even close to even happening.
Yeah, Team Hell No and Undertaker against The Shield was actually a match I had said should be at WrestleMania. Looks like maybe we'll get that at Extreme Rules or sometime in the future. I don't know. Personally, the only thing I take from that is it's going to be kind of nice if The Undertaker is actually going to be around for a little while here.
I think that it's a good way to keep him around and wrestling by having him be a part of tag matches. He won't have to carry a big load, and this one makes sense. He's teaming up with his brother, and his brother happens to have a tag team partner, so they can fight a team of 3. It's either that or 3-man band. Maybe we'll get a triple threat 9-man match if we're lucky. So yeah, I could see that being the next pay-per-view. That would make sense to me, especially if they're going to keep the belts on Team Hell No, make it so they don't have to defend it, or maybe they do a Spirit Squad rules where they'll defend it against a trio. I don't know, or Freebird rules, I guess.
Yeah, speaking of 3-man band, they were on next. I wasn't much to tell, as I kind of alluded to this earlier. The cohesive team of 3-man band lost in the 6-man against a random team of Santino, Zack Ryder, and R-Truth.
This match, I'm sorry, you were saying, Joe.
Yeah, this match was seemingly just filler for the night. Like I said, nothing much to talk about on the match. It
was so uneventful that until you mentioned the participants, I forgot R-Truth was in it. I was going to ask you, it was Zack Ryder, Santino, and who? I think I was actually going back and forth between rooms during this match because I knew there wasn't going to be anything of significance. And I mean, if you're a 3-man band, you got to feel bad not getting at least a win against that group.
Yeah, I mean, I tweeted the joke, but it was kind of true. I said, well, none of these 6 ever wins. How's this match going to end?
With a bomb going off.
Yeah. Someone else online said, well, who's going to debut and take out all 6 of these guys? None of that happened. It ended up being a rather uneventful match, and that kind of translated as we got into the next match of the Sheamus versus Orton, along with their WWE poll and who got to fight the Big Show. Again, it was another match where you were fighting for the right to fight somebody with no real goal in mind, and the crowd seemed to be a little bored with the idea, as this was when they really started getting into their random chants.
Yeah, and I was glad they did it. I would have chanted along right with them if I knew somebody could hear me. Big Show comes in, wipes out both guys. Is this going to lead to a triple threat match at Extreme Rules? What do you think?
Yeah, that seems to be the way it's going. Again, it seems like it's 3 guys that don't have a lot else going on, so they're just going to fight each other. But it's 3 competitors that usually put on decent matches, so it's not something I'm going to originally say it's going to be bad.
It's better than getting the primetime players or like JTG.
Yeah. After that, we saw the return of Fandango, however he wants us to say it, out to the ring. And when the crowd really fell in love with his entrance theme, he beat Kofi Kingston by DQ, and Jericho came out and took him out.
So clearly the Fandango Jericho feud is not over. Kofi Kingston, I mean, he did a good job with the pregame show, looked good in his suit, but he's a guy without a spot, and he's been like that for a while. He'll get that occasional IC title or US title run, and then he kind of fades back to the background. I like him, but speculation is that he will be turning heel soon. He said in an interview that he had been hearing that, and I think he heard internet rumors of it first before anything else. But he had said that, you know, if that's the way they go, he'll go for it and he'll make the most of it. And I'd like to see that, because right now he's kind of in Rey Mysterio territory where his wins and losses are inconsequential. He's just a guy the kids like. He wears bright colors and goes out there and he's always smiling no matter what. I know they tried to make him look tough and mean in that feud with Randy Orton about 4 years ago, where he threw paint all over the Randy Orton race car, but nothing really came of that.
Yeah, I've said for a long time that that's the only memorable thing Kofi Kingston's ever really done, and you know,
except hold tag titles with random guys.
Except for hold tag titles with a lot of different partners, yeah, and yeah. Whatever you feel about him in the ring, I've always kind of saw him as someone who jumps and does fun, interesting moves, but maybe doesn't have the best matches for cohesion anyways.
It's like a poor man's RVD.
Essentially, yeah. And, you know, maybe a heel turn would be good for him. He could start, you know, utilizing some different offense and maybe come into his own there too.
But biggest thing, like you said, came out of this match was Fandango. I mean, I think he turned a corner, and I think he has everyone in New Jersey to thank. I'm really looking forward to what they do with him. I think he has the potential. I think he has it in him. He's not just... I mean, Zack Ryder looks like he was kind of that guy where people got behind him, but I think when it came to deliver, he just couldn't, whether it was the fault of WWE or if he just dropped the ball. Another guy that comes to mind is kind of Val Venus. He had those opportunities, and then he had a feud with Austin, and it just fell by the wayside.
Yeah. It's interesting to see where they go from there. I think Zack Ryder seems to put all the blame on WWE. Speaking on him for just a second, but I don't really feel like he took the ball with his opportunities either. Speaking of denied opportunities, the next match was the 8-person tag originally scheduled for WrestleMania.
Great segue.
Tons of Funk and the Funkadactyls against Road Scholars and the Bellas. I'm someone who likes the Funkasaurus. I love all the fun gimmicks like that. It broke my heart to see Brodus Clay's tweet after WrestleMania.
Yes.
of missing out on your opportunity. And again, we kind of touched on this earlier. The match was about 4 or 5 minutes long. It really could have been on WrestleMania without hurting anything.
I think so, and I saw that same tweet, and I felt terrible. I even replied to him, said, go get him at 30 in Nolans. I even felt bad when they came out at Raw because they had their fancy suits on. They had their new colors and their new gear that they wanted to debut at Mania, and I felt for them. But Tensai, or Sweet Tea now, I can't get over how many wrestlers he has been without actually completely changing his gimmick. Like, he hasn't thrown on a mask or anything, other than when he debuted during his entrance as Tensai. But he's been Prince Albert, A-Train, the Hip Hop Hippo, Tensai, Sweet Tea. He's my World Heavyweight Champion in my WWE Universe game for WWE 13. But I do like this tandem. I think that if they hold on to it for a while, every week though I'm waiting for Tensai or Sweet Tea, whatever you want to call him, to turn heel on Brodus Clay. And at first I didn't expect, or I didn't know what to think of the Funkasaurus. We saw big Brodus Clay, mean NXT guy, and then whose Patsy was he? Was he Johnny
Del Rio's partner?
He was Del Rio's Patsy for a while, and he was a big mean guy. And then they delayed his debut, and he came in as the Funkasaurus with Ernest Miller's music, and I didn't know what to make of it. But now I think he's great. Of course, the kids love him, but he's also a guy where he's a big dude who can do some damage. Give him another big dude who can do some damage as a partner. And the Funkadactyls are a good team with him. We're now getting to see Cameron and Naomi fight in the ring, and both look really talented, especially Naomi. And I like that group. Rhodes Scholars, though, I expect more from, and tons of Funk won this match, but it was a good, I guess, uplifting match. And if you look at their place on the WrestleMania card, assuming that they were going to be right before the main event or 2 spots before the main event, they would have done their job to get that victory and get the crowd excited in a quickie match.
Yeah, I think so. My favorite wrestlers are the ones that seem to love what they're doing. And I think even through all his changes, Sweet Tea seems to still enjoy going out there, and that's the same with Brodus. He seems to always be having fun. So
those are the guys, I think, that and women who make the most of the chance they're given, and with whatever they're given. If they go with it, even if they hate it, if they heart to heart tell you they hate it, but they're out there and you would have no idea that they hate it, those are the people that make it the best.
Yep. And, I think, speaking of hatred again, we move on to the main event. The fans hating John Cena as he takes on Mark Henry. The match itself, it was okay. It was a little battle. The ending seemed really odd. Count-out victory for John Cena.
I wasn't expecting a count-out. I expected Henry to win. But it looked like almost like an accidental count out. Cena gets right back in before the 10. Henry, world's strongest slams him after the match, like he's been doing lately to everybody. And we'll see what happens from there, but Ryback comes down to make the save. And what seems to be becoming another new post-WrestleMania tradition, John Cena gets attacked and beat up to close out the Raw after WrestleMania.
Yeah, I ask this question now just as honestly as I did last night. Was Ryback turning heel on John Cena? I honestly don't know, because the crowd was cheering him for it.
And the question, other than the fact that the crowd was rooting for Ryback and making you think that maybe he was just doing everyone a favor, what leads me to believe that he wasn't turning heel was that he grabbed the title right after. And by lifting that up, I think he was saying, and I can only say I think because he doesn't really say a whole lot, I think he was saying that I want the title. I will go through anybody, whoever has it, whoever I need to go through. I will do whatever I can to get this title. I thought it was a great way to make him recover from his loss at WrestleMania. I watched last night and I thought, okay, Ryback, I don't care that you lost on Sunday. You look like a beast right now. And I think this leaves it open now where the writing staff and creative can decide what to do with him. Decide if they want to take him to the direction of the anti-hero, which is kind of what he's always been, the anti-hero. I know before WrestleMania last year when Raw was in Minneapolis, were you there?
It was
late February.
Yeah, I remember it.
Early March. I was there, and he was wrestling, I think it was a match on Superstars, or it was a dark match, and he kind of played the heel role. And I was surprised when he started becoming a face, just because I remember that match from Raw, but now I think this will leave it open-ended. But you're right. I saw the great meme with I'm not familiar with my characters from Futurama, but the redheaded guy with the squint,
Fry.
He's like, that was exactly what you said. You might have even been the one who posted that or retweeted it. It said, I don't know if they turned Ryback heel or if he just got super over, and that is the question mark. I'm gonna go with super over more than anything, but if it's as simple as Raw ended, a triple threat match with those three guys, does that show any interest? Does that make you interested at all in Extreme Rules?
At the very least, it's something different. I mean, if we're going to have John Cena as the champion again, which seems like we're stuck with it for at least a little while here, might as well be having him fight new opponents. And while it's not going to be pretty, it's not going to be the greatest technical showdown with those three in the ring, I think they're capable of putting on an interesting match if you slap on an Extreme Rules, extreme stipulation on it. I think it could be fun.
I think so too. You have three guys, two especially, who are capable of doing some serious damage. And while no one will ever accuse Cena of being the greatest grappler or technician, he'll be right at home in a match like this. He'll be up for some big spots, and he also can do some damage too. And the best Cena is post 2005, post chain gang gimmick, is when he's angry and destructive. And I think that he'll be able to embrace that side. Not embrace the hate like Kane said, but embrace that destructive side of himself, and he won't have to go toe-to-toe with the Punks or Daniel Bryan. He's not going to have to match them hold for hold, move for move. So it's a match I'm looking forward to, even if the foregone conclusion is that he's leaving with the championship. I'll still, there's always the off chance that he'll get injured and have to lose the title, drop it.
Yeah, I think if that's where they're going for Extreme Rules, I think they'll do fine. There's enough other matches with the technical stars to get things get that part of the show in there too.
To wrap up here, after the show went off the air, Cena spoke to the crowd for about 4 minutes. He thanked them for their energy. He said that they were awesome. He mentioned a lot of their cheers, including the "We Are Awesome" cheer or chant. And he said that normally they leave the show with somebody's music because that's what WWE wants. But he said not tonight. you guys are going to play us out. So then they hummed sang the theme song that Fandango comes out to, the cha-cha la 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 or whatever, cha-cha-cha la la la, and then Justin Roberts thanked the crowd for coming, and then they queued up Fandango's music. And as Matt said, and as YouTube will show and Twitter, the theme was hummed and sung for probably the next hour after people were honking their horns in the pattern of the theme. And just a raucous crowd that I really hope can translate to next week. I hope they can build that momentum. I know that's hard when you leave the hardest of hardcore audience members to a lot of like 9-year-olds in Cena gear. We'll see what happens, but it was a fun Raw, and one I'll keep on my DVR for quite some time.
Yeah, good show, good week for WWE. I think they recovered from mediocre WrestleMania, gave us something to really look forward to here, and yeah, it's all about let's see where they go from here. That's kind of where I'm at, anyways.
I want to thank Matt for calling in, and Joe, I want to thank you for joining me today. You're welcome back anytime, and I think we could have a triple threat podcast whenever Matt gives the green light. I'm all for it. So thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me voice my opinion. I think it was a lot of fun, and I'd be happy to do it again sometime.
You can follow Joe on Twitter at the Joe Hansen, and that's Hansen SEN. And like I said, you can follow Immortals PCast on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook at Podcast of the Immortals. Find us on WordPress. Find us on Podbean, iTunes, everywhere. But thanks again. My name's Jimmy Bellamy, and this is Joe Hansen over to my right. Have a great week. Take care.